Have you ever caught someone lying, and instead of owning up to it, they twisted the situation so badly that you ended up questioning yourself? They didn't just lie, they got defensive, aggressive, disrespectful, and suddenly it wasn't even about the lie anymore. It was about how wrong you were for catching them. Let's be real. Some people will do anything to protect their ego. They'll insult you, mock you, guilt trip you, or even cut you off, all because you dared to confront the truth. These are the people who don't deserve your trust. And today, we're exposing them. Here are rude and disrespectful things people do when they're caught lying. Watch closely, because these signs reveal someone's true character the moment their mask falls off. By the way, if you enjoy deep, thought-provoking insights on Stoicism, self-improvement, and navigating life with wisdom, you'll love my free newsletter. Every Sunday, I share powerful lessons, controversial truths, and practical strategies to help you level up, all for free. Want to join? Sign up using the link below and start receiving value-packed content straight to your inbox every week. And if you're a brand looking to sponsor my content and reach a highly engaged audience, feel free to reach out via my email in the description. Let's create something impactful together. 1. They attack your character. This one hits close to home. I remember the first time it happened to me. I confronted someone I genuinely cared about, calmly, respectfully, after I found out they lied. Nothing crazy, just a direct, "Hey, this doesn't add up. Can we talk about it?" And instead of clarity, I got claws. Suddenly, I was toxic. I was controlling. I was always looking for drama. They didn't address the lie. They attacked me. It's wild how fast a liar will go from being caught to turning the spotlight on your flaws, real or imagined. You say, "You told me one thing and now it's another." They say, "You're paranoid. You always assume the worst. You're insecure. You're exhausting." Notice the shift? You go in looking for honesty and you walk away questioning your sanity. That's not a coincidence. It's a defense mechanism, but not one born from guilt. No, guilt would have led to an apology. This is born from ego and survival. When some people are exposed, they panic. They go into fight mode. And you become the enemy simply for telling the truth. I've seen people weaponize your past against you in an instant. They'll say, "You're one to talk," or "coming from you." That's rich. Suddenly, your past mistakes are dragged into the ring like a referee who's already been paid off. They want to level the playing field by dragging you into the mud. But here's the controversial truth no one wants to say out loud. Some people are only your friend, your partner, or your family, as long as they can lie comfortably in your presence. The moment you become a mirror, reflecting their dishonesty, they'll shatter the mirror instead of looking at themselves. And here's the trap. If you're not grounded, if you don't know yourself deeply, you'll start defending your character instead of the truth. You'll say, "No, I'm not insecure. No, I'm not starting drama." And just like that, you've already lost. Because now the conversation isn't about the lie anymore, it's about you. That's the disrespect. That's the manipulation. And if you're not careful, you'll end up apologizing to the person who lied to you. This is why people say, don't argue with a liar, not because you'll lose the debate, but because they don't play fair. You bring facts, they bring attacks. And what's worse, they know what they're doing. They want you emotional, off balance, insecure. Because if you're too busy defending your character, you'll stop defending the truth. And let's go deeper. When someone attacks your character after being caught in a lie, they're showing you who they really are, not the version they've been pretending to be. They're showing you how little respect they had for you to begin with. Because if they respected you, the lie wouldn't have happened. And if they truly valued you, the apology would have been immediate. Instead, they weaponize every insecurity they know you have. Because they were never honest with you, they were studying you. Let that sink in. A liar doesn't just deceive. They observe. They wait. And when you finally confront them, they don't apologize. They strike. Not because they're hurt, but because they're trying to win. So here's the deep message. Never trust someone who needs to destroy your character to protect their lie. Because truth doesn't require casualties. Only ego does, and the harsh truth. If someone is willing to disrespect you to avoid admitting they lied, they never saw you as an equal in the first place. They saw you as someone they could get away with deceiving. When they attack your character, don't get emotional. Get observant. They just gave you the clearest sign of who they really are, and more importantly, who they're not. 2. They use spirituality or morality to guilt you. Some lies hide behind words, but the worst lies, they hide behind virtue. I'll never forget the day someone looked me dead in the eye after lying to me and said, "I thought you were more forgiving than this." At first, it almost worked. I started questioning myself. Am I being too harsh? Am I not spiritual enough? Am I failing to turn the other cheek? But then it hit me. What kind of person commits the wrong and then uses morality to avoid accountability? That's when I realized some people don't use religion or ethics to grow. They use them as a shield, a holy excuse to stay the same. You confront them for lying and they start preaching forgiveness. You point out their deception and they start quoting the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, whatever makes you feel like you're the sinner for calling them out. It's manipulative, it's strategic, and it's deeply disrespectful. They'll say things like, "Aren't we all flawed? Only God can judge me. You're supposed to lead with love, not judgment. You're acting holier than thou." You're not being judgmental. You're being honest. And that's the part they can't handle. Here's the controversial part. A lot of people hide behind spirituality, not because they're spiritual, but because they know you are. They exploit your values. They know you're empathetic. They know you're patient. They know you want to be a good person, and they twist that desire into a leash. They don't apologize. They don't reflect. They spiritual bully you into silence. Let's be honest. This behavior is especially common in tight-knit religious families or communities. People will commit clear, conscious harm, and then talk about grace and unity, as if those words cancel out reality. They'll weaponize your desire for peace as a way to avoid war with their own conscience. I had someone once tell me, "You need to pray about your anger." My anger? They lied, they manipulated, and now I'm the one who needs to pray? See the game? And look, I'm all for forgiveness, but forgiveness doesn't mean blindness. It doesn't mean ignoring someone's pattern just because they end their lives with "God bless." True spirituality is about humility. True morality is about growth. And if someone uses either of those things to avoid growth, they're not practicing virtue, they're performing it. You want the deep message? If someone uses morality to make you feel guilty for standing up for the truth, they were never moral to begin with. They don't care about ethics. They care about being seen as ethical. Big difference. Anyone can quote scripture. Anyone can say forgive and forget. But the real test of character? Whether they take responsibility when they've done wrong, not how well they guilt you into pretending it didn't happen. So if someone lies to you, and then tries to make you feel spiritually inferior for noticing. Smile. You just exposed something bigger than the lie. You exposed the mask they wear. 3. They call you too sensitive. You're overreacting. Wow, calm down. You're being too sensitive. Sound familiar? It's the go-to phrase for people who don't want to face what they've done. The moment you express hurt, not rage, not hysteria, just hurt, they slap that label on you like a band-aid to cover a bullet wound. And suddenly you're the problem, not the lie, not the betrayal, not the disrespect. You. I've been there. I confronted someone once about a clear, deliberate lie. Nothing dramatic, just, "Hey, I found this out. It doesn't match what you told me. I'd just like to understand." Their response: "You always make everything emotional. I can't say anything without you blowing it up." And I remember standing there, completely stunned. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't accusing, I was hurting. And instead of meeting that with honesty, they hit me with the "you're too sensitive" card. That phrase doesn't just shut down a conversation. It reverses the entire direction of blame. It tells you, the lie didn't hurt you. You hurt yourself by caring too much. But let's call it what it is: emotional gaslighting. It's the subtle art of making your pain feel irrational. And it works, because it makes you doubt the most sacred thing you have, your own feelings. Here's the controversial truth. Calling someone too sensitive is rarely about emotional control. It's about emotional control freaking. They're not calling you sensitive because you are. They're calling you sensitive because they can't handle being seen as wrong. Let that sink in. It's not about your emotional tone. It's about their emotional defensiveness. You're shining a light on something ugly in them, and instead of owning it, they scramble to make you look irrational. Because if you're the crazy one, they don't have to reflect. They don't have to apologize. They just have to survive the moment, even if it means belittling your reality. And the really manipulative ones, they'll say it with a smile. "Relax, I was just joking. You're taking it too seriously," as if invalidating you is some kind of charm. Here's the kicker. If someone lies and you react, you're sensitive. But if you ever lied and they reacted, suddenly they'd call it boundaries, self-respect, and non-negotiables. Funny how that works, right? This is why emotional maturity matters, because a mature person, when told they hurt someone, listens. They don't deflect, they don't minimize, and they definitely don't make your heart the problem. The deep message. Sensitivity isn't weakness. Sensitivity means you're tuned into reality. It means you feel deeply, care deeply, and live honestly. That's a strength in a world full of people who've numbed themselves into cruelty. If someone lies to you and then calls you too sensitive when you speak up, they're not just avoiding the truth, they're mocking the very soul that made you care in the first place. That's not just disrespect, that's dehumanizing. So the next time someone throws that phrase at you, don't internalize it. Just know this. You're not too sensitive. They're too dishonest to handle someone with a heart. 4. They ghost you completely. You know what hurts more than being lied to? Being treated like you don't even deserve a response. I remember the first time it happened to me. I had this friend, let's call him D. We were close. The type of friend who knows the ins and outs of your life. Family, fears, ambitions, the unfiltered stuff. Then one day, I found out he lied to me. It wasn't even a big lie, just a twisted version of a story that didn't match what he told others. A story where I was conveniently left looking like the idiot. So I called him out, Nothing aggressive, just straight. "Hey, I heard this, and it doesn't match what you told me. Can you explain?" Seen. Delivered. No reply. At first I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was embarrassed. A day passed, then 2, then a week. Suddenly I noticed I was blocked. No warning, no goodbye, just erased. And I sat there staring at my screen, feeling this weird mix of confusion, betrayal, and shame. I thought, did I overreact? Was I too harsh? But the truth, I was just honest. That's it. That's all I did. And that's what they can't handle. Ghosting after being caught in a lie is the most cowardly, manipulative, emotionally bankrupt thing a person can do. It's the modern version of slamming a door in your face without even letting you ask, why? But let's not get it twisted. Ghosting isn't neutral. It's not silence. It's punishment. They're saying, how dare you call me out? How dare you break the fantasy where I'm the good one? So they punish you by pretending you don't even exist. And in doing so, they try to win. Not by being right, but by being unreachable. I went through this with more than one person. Every time I held someone accountable for their dishonesty, whether a friend, an ex, or even family, they didn't explain themselves. They vanished, blocked me, ignored me. That's not emotional self-protection, that's emotional manipulation. They'd rather torch the bridge than admit they cracked the foundation. And guess what? They'll go out and tell people, I didn't want drama. She was too intense. He took it the wrong way. They rewrite the script, because when they disappear, they get to control the narrative. But I've learned something painful and powerful. When someone ghosts you after lying, they're not avoiding you. They're avoiding themselves. They can't face their own shame. They can't handle the image you now hold of them. Imperfect, exposed, dishonest. So they disappear in hopes that your silence will feel worse than their apology would have felt. It's a twisted power move, because you're left with a ghost. But the haunting isn't theirs. It's yours. You walk around with the unanswered questions, the dangling pain, the what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. You did nothing wrong. They ghosted you because they lacked the spine to face a mirror held up by someone who actually cared. So here's what I do now. When someone disappears after getting caught, I don't chase. I don't beg for closure. I don't explain myself again and again to someone who heard me the first time and chose to walk. Let them ghost. Let them leave. Let them talk behind your back. Because a person who disappears when truth shows up would have disappeared the first time you needed them to be real. And that's not someone you've lost. That's someone you've just escaped. 5. They get defensive instantly. It's one of the most frustrating things you'll ever experience. You confront someone, politely or even casually, and instead of simply acknowledging their mistake, they immediately flip the script and start attacking. You can feel the atmosphere shift. The air becomes charged with tension, and in the blink of an eye, the conversation no longer centers on the issue at hand. No, it's now about you, your approach, your tone, your supposed agenda. Suddenly, you're the villain for calling out their lie. I remember a situation not too long ago when I had a colleague who had, quite frankly, told me a blatant lie. It was something small in the grand scheme of things, but it directly affected our work. They'd said one thing in a meeting, and a few days later, I discovered they'd said something entirely different behind closed doors. So I did what I thought was normal. I addressed it with them. It was simple. I said, "Hey, I noticed that what you said in the meeting doesn't match what you told others later. Can you help me understand?" What I got back wasn't an apology. It wasn't any form of explanation. No, instead, I was hit with a barrage of defensive responses that frankly stunned me. I don't know what you're talking about. You're always picking at things. Why are you always making everything into a bigger deal than it is? Just like that, my honest inquiry turned into an accusation of me being difficult. And at that moment, I wasn't just dealing with someone who couldn't admit their fault. I was dealing with someone whose need to protect their fragile ego was stronger than their ability to reflect and improve. I won't lie, it threw me off at first. You go into a situation thinking, this is easy, it's just a small clarification. But when someone gets defensive, the emotional tone shifts. They don't just protect their lie, they attack your character. They question your intentions. They make you doubt yourself. You're suddenly not the one who was lied to. You're the one causing trouble for pointing it out. This kind of behavior used to drive me crazy. I'd replay the conversation in my mind, second-guessing my approach. I'd think, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I overreacted. And it's a form of manipulation, really. Because when someone gets defensive, it shifts the focus away from the real issue, their lie, and places the blame squarely on you for bringing it up in the first place. Here's the kicker. People who get defensive are the ones who have the hardest time dealing with truth. When you expose their lie, even gently, it shakes their very foundation. And instead of owning up to their mistake, they scramble to save face. And that's when they lash out. I remember another instance with a close friend. We were talking about some personal matters, and I noticed that they had lied about something important in their life. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it was significant enough that it hurt to realize they hadn't been truthful. So I brought it up to them, trying to keep things calm. Hey, I've noticed that the story you told me doesn't line up with what I've heard from others. Can we talk about it? Instead of discussing it like adults, they immediately went into full defense mode. The walls came up like a fortress, and instead of simply apologizing or explaining, they made me the problem. I can't believe you're digging into my life like this, they snapped. You're always trying to catch me in something. What's wrong with you? It wasn't a conversation anymore. It was an emotional war zone, with me being accused of being the accuser. And that's when I realized something crucial about people who get defensive instantly. They don't just lie to others, they lie to themselves first. Their ego is so fragile that any crack in their version of reality is an existential threat. So, they lash out because they can't stand the discomfort of being wrong, or worse, being exposed. It's easier to tear you down than to face their own shortcomings. Now, I look at defensive people differently. When someone's defensive after being caught in a lie, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. They're insecure. They don't have the courage to face their own mistakes. Their immediate reaction isn't to repair the damage or learn from it. Instead, they retreat into themselves, refusing to grow because growth requires humility, something they just don't have. In my experience, these are the same people who'll say, I don't like conflict. But the truth is, they just can't handle the discomfort of owning up to their actions. They'd rather pretend it never happened or deflect than admit they were wrong. It took me a long time to understand that a defensive person isn't someone you can fix. You can't change someone who refuses to even acknowledge the truth. And even if they do temporarily apologize or give your six, they start crying. Let's talk about a reaction that most people are too afraid to call out: the tears. Now, don't get me wrong, crying in itself is not a sign of guilt. We all cry. I cry. You cry. It's human. But there's a difference between genuine emotion and weaponized vulnerability. And when someone starts crying the moment they're caught lying, especially when the tears come out of nowhere, it's not always about regret. Sometimes it's a defense mechanism, a distraction, an emotional smoke bomb. I learned this the hard way. I was dating someone years ago. She was charming, kind, soft-spoken, the kind of person you'd never expect to lie. But over time, small things didn't add up. She'd tell me one version of a story, then a completely different one later. I let it go for a while, thinking, maybe I misheard, maybe she forgot. Until one day, I caught her in a lie so direct, so undeniable, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I confronted her gently, no accusations, just, "Hey, I noticed this and this don't match. Can we talk about it?" She froze, no words, just this long pause, and then tears, full-blown sobbing, like I'd just punched her in the gut. But here's the thing, the tears didn't come with honesty. They didn't come with an apology or explanation. No, they came with guilt-tripping. "I can't believe you think that of me. How could you say something like that? I'm just so hurt right now." And for a moment, I felt like the bad guy, even though I was the one being lied to, even though I had the evidence, even though I was the one who should be hurt. But suddenly, it was about her pain, her tears, her emotions, and I was forced into the role of the heartless interrogator. Let me tell you something controversial. Some people cry not because they're sorry, but because they got caught. It's not always an expression of guilt. Sometimes it's manipulation in its purest form. Because when you cry, the social rules change. People back off, they soften, they hesitate, and a liar knows that. It's like a magician's distraction. Pull your attention to the tears so you stop focusing on the truth. Now, this isn't just a relationship issue. I've seen it in friendships, workplaces, even family. A former co-worker of mine once got caught lying about why she missed an important deadline. The boss confronted her with the proof, timestamps, emails, the whole trail. And before she could even finish her sentence, boom, tears. Suddenly, the meeting became a therapy session. "Oh, I've been under so much stress. I didn't want to disappoint you. I'm just so overwhelmed." And just like that, the conversation shifted from accountability to comfort. Everyone started reassuring her, telling her it was okay, even though she blatantly lied. It worked. No consequences, no growth, just sympathy. And look, I'm not saying every tear is fake. Some people cry because they do feel remorse, and that's valid. But when crying becomes a tool to avoid the truth, it's not vulnerability. It's manipulation. It's emotional camouflage. The hardest part? You feel cruel for calling it out. Because how do you look someone in the eyes while they're crying and say, "I still want the truth"? You'll be seen as heartless, cold, uncaring. But that's what emotional manipulators count on. Your compassion is their cover. They rely on your discomfort with conflict to escape it. And here's the deep truth I learned. If someone's tears erase their responsibility, they were never going to take it in the first place. Real remorse comes with accountability, not just emotion. If someone's really sorry, they'll own up, even if they cry. But if all they do is cry to avoid the conversation, to make you feel like the aggressor, it's not regret, it's a strategy. So what do? You stay grounded. You don't yell, you don't belittle, but you also don't back down. You can say, "I see that you're upset, I really do, but we still need to talk about this, because your emotions matter too. Your truth matters. Don't let someone's tears wash that away." Crying doesn't make someone a villain, but it doesn't make them innocent either. Sometimes the most manipulative people hide behind the softest tears. 7. They say it's just a small lie. Ah yes, the infamous line, "It was just a small lie." Sounds harmless, doesn't it? Almost cute, like it tripped and fell into your life by accident. A little white lie. No big deal, right? Let me tell you a story. I once had a close friend I trusted like a brother. We were tight, same values, same goals, same dreams. I'd go to war for this guy. We were both building our careers, chasing the grind, and cheering each other on like underdogs in a world that didn't care. That kind of bond is rare. Then one day I found out he'd been lying about something small. Something stupid, really. He told me he had submitted my name for a freelance opportunity we both talked about. I never got a call back. Weeks passed. I thought maybe the company just wasn't interested. Turns out, he never submitted my name at all. I found out through someone else who worked there. They said, "Oh, we only got one referral from him, himself." I was stunned. When I confronted him, calm and respectfully, do you know what he said? "Bro, why are you making this a big deal? It was just a small lie. I didn't think it would matter." That line hit harder than the lie itself, because it wasn't just about the opportunity. It was about the trust, the respect, the belief that I mattered enough to him not to get stepped over for convenience. That lie told me something deeper. My success wasn't as important as his comfort. Here's the controversial truth. When someone says, "It's just a small lie," they're not minimizing the lie. They're minimizing your intelligence, your pain, and your ability to recognize betrayal. They're basically saying, you shouldn't feel hurt. You shouldn't feel disrespected. You should swallow this and move on. It's a subtle form of gaslighting, and it works because it shifts the blame from the liar to the person reacting. But let me tell you, there's no such thing as a small lie when it breaks trust. Because behind every small lie is a bigger belief that you won't notice, or worse, you won't care. Another time I was dating someone who used to lie about who she was texting. She'd say it was her cousin. Then it was her friend from work. Then it turned out to be her ex. When I caught her, she said the same thing. Come on, it wasn't anything serious, just a small lie to avoid drama. Avoid drama? What do you think happens when the lie comes out? You get more drama than if you had just been honest in the first place. People lie small because they think they can control your reaction, not because they respect your ability to handle the truth. Let me be brutally honest. Most small lies are like termites. They're quiet, hidden, seemingly harmless, but they eat away at the foundation of a relationship until it collapses without warning. People think a lie is only as big as the story behind it. But a lie's real size is measured by the intention behind it and the damage it causes. That's what people forget. Because the deeper message is this: every lie, no matter how small, says something about who they are when you're not looking. It says, I care more about protecting my image than preserving your trust. It says, I don't believe you deserve the full truth. It says, your emotional safety is optional. Let that sink in. When you hear, it's just a small lie, don't let it soften your instincts. Look deeper. Ask yourself, what does this lie protect? What does it hide? And what does it cost me to let it slide? Because when people get away with small lies, they test the waters. And before long, you're drowning in a sea of dishonesty, wondering how it all got so messy. Don't let anyone shrink your pain just because their lie wasn't catastrophic. Lies don't need to be loud to be lethal. Sometimes the smallest lie is the loudest red flag. So here's the brutal truth. When you catch someone lying, you don't just discover a lie. You discover who they really are when their mask slips. And that moment, it reveals more than 100 conversations ever could. It shows how they handle discomfort. It shows if they take responsibility or run. It shows whether they value truth or their ego more. People will tell you that lies are normal, that everyone lies, that it's just how humans are. But that's a weak excuse, because what matters isn't perfection. It's integrity. It's not about never messing up. It's about how you show up when you do. When someone lies and then adds insult to injury with gaslighting, manipulation, guilt-tripping, tears, or excuses, that's not just immaturity. That's emotional violence wrapped in charm. It's a clear sign. They don't respect you enough to be real with you. And you should never beg for honesty, never plead for clarity. You deserve the kind of people who tell the truth even when it's hard, not because they're scared of getting caught, but because they respect you enough not to lie in the first place. Because at the end of the day, the worst part of being lied to isn't the lie itself. It's the insult to your intelligence. It's the slap in the face that says, you're too naive to notice. You're too weak to handle the truth. You're too small to matter. But you do matter. And your peace is worth more than staying connected to people who treat honesty like it's optional. If someone can look you in the eye, lie to you, and then try to manipulate you when caught, cut them off quietly, not to be cruel, but to protect your energy. Because trust, once cracked, can never be unbroken. It can only be managed. And some people don't deserve the chance to manage it anymore. So protect your peace, protect your gut, and most importantly, protect your dignity. Because if someone disrespects you when they're caught lying, they never respected you in the first place.